Oh, right. Take two, because I'm kind of stupid. And
No,
click
guys. This is the first
This
take
is
of
the
the
first
podcast.
take. We have not
today.
done this before. We only got like 8 minutes in, so it's not the end of the world. But
For some reason, the video didn't start recording for us today. So
absolutely, we love that. So
It's okay.
That's my fault.
But happy Monday, you guys.
Happy Monday. Happy Monaco weekend. Happy
Indy 500 weekend. Happy Catalunya.
Catalunya for MotoGP.
MotoGP.
Yep.
Heavy weekend of racing this week. 2 of the 3 races that fall into the Triple Crown of motor racing happen on the same day. Today, it is currently lap 18 of the Monaco GP. Raven and I are recording during the race today, just because the race typically feathers out to be a bit of a bore fest. But also, we have a bit of scheduling conflict with Raven moving tomorrow, so we wanted to knock it out today, not do it at our usual nighttime spot, just because Raven wants to actually get some sleep. I would love to get some sleep too. It's been a very long weekend.
Yes, he's nailing it on the head of the nail. So yeah, we are watching the race right now. If you see us like looking down or anything, that's why. So we're gonna just kind of shake up our schedule a little bit. We'll let Oliver do his F2 race recap, and then we'll go into the MotoGP, and then we'll go into news and everything else like we usually do. So, Oliver, I'll let you speed through this.
So I can actually do it in the correct order this time. So we're going to start off with practice for F2, probably the biggest incident of the week in any discretion that raced at Monaco this weekend to me. So Ritomo Miata has an issue during practice as he's going through the tunnel section. And that tunnel section kinks to the right a little bit. So it turns into a blind corner for, a car that's sitting on the right side. Isaac Hadjar is doing a flyer for practice, and he comes into the tunnel, and within half a second of seeing Ritomo Miata essentially parked on the inside line, he needs to, make a slight correction, get out of the way, but also not hit the wall at the same time. And he executed it absolutely perfectly. If you look up the clip, if you just look up F2 Monaco tunnel section, you'll see the video that we're talking about. It's blown up everywhere. I mean, ESPN's been posting about it. F1 has been posting about it. So if you're a fan of the sport, you will have seen it at some point. But to me, it's just that is the greatest reaction time I've ever seen out of a driver in an open wheel car personally, to avoid what is not certain death, but certainly a huge incident in that tunnel. Definitely some serious injury. But other than that, practice was pretty cut and dry. Going into qualifying, Formula 2 does qualifying a little bit differently than F1 does, which is something I think F1 should implement. After I explain, you'll kind of make some sense of it. So in Formula 2, specifically at Monaco, they do qualifying in 2 different groups to reduce traffic on the circuit, which, the fact that F1 doesn't do that, especially in like Q1 with 20 F1 cars on track, that kind of blows my mind. But with 24 cars in Formula 2, each car is assigned a number that relates to their constructor. So like, let's say Prema, for example, their cars are numbered 3 and 4. ART, their cars are 5 and 6. AIX Racing, their cars are 21 and 22. So what happens is they'll take all of the odd-numbered cars, and they will be in Group 1. They'll take all of the even-numbered cars, and they'll be in Group 2. And then they'll they'll qualify based on their groups. So one of the things with this that might be a little complicated is, if I finish first in my group, that must mean I'm starting on the front row. No. So what happens is all the times will be filtered accordingly after the schedule. So you could qualify first in your group, but you could start the race from as low as P13 if for some reason, track conditions have changed that much to where you had the worst session time to go qualify in. But I think it's a really good system. I think it's something F1 should look into doing for Monaco, because there's a lot of impeding issues that always happen when it comes to Monaco and penalty points and all that kind of stuff. So, lessening the amount of cars that are on track, I think, is a good thing. So maybe if F1 gave that a chance, we could see probably some better qualifying sessions. People may be pushing a little bit harder just because they have the track space to do that. But anyways, qualifying was good. Richard Verschoor took pole position, his maiden pole position in his 4th season in Formula 2. from the pit lane as well, since he was in the first qualifying group. So he kind of just got to sit there and watch the times come up and see that he was safe. He took it by, I believe, around a tenth of a second. But Taylor Barnard qualified in P10, meaning that he started the sprint race from pole position as the top 1 through 10 reverse for the sprint race. So he starts on pole position for the sprint race. It was a very hectic race. I think there was 3 safety cars and a virtual safety car. But with a pit stop not being mandatory in the sprint race for F2, pretty much regardless of what happened, Taylor Barnard was going to win that race so long as he could manage the drivers behind him. And he did that really well to take his first win in F2, AIX's first win in F2. I just thought it was really nice because that team has always struggled in Formula 2. So to have their first podium last week with Joshua Dirksen and then immediately take their next win the week later, I thought that was really cool. But when it came to the main race, that's where I really was genuinely surprised just about how crazy Monaco can be. It was a very, very boring race, the feature race. Not much incident happened. Vachor started from pole position, started having some issues about halfway through the race, and by lap 31, he retired with an engine failure. But what was so crazy was a lot of drivers were hanging it out towards the end of the race to then pit and just see where they came out. They were kind of waiting for, some intervention of a virtual safety car or a safety car. Most drivers gave up on it 6-7 laps from the end of the race, except for Zach O'Sullivan, who on lap 40 still had not made his one mandatory pit stop, starting from P15. He was leading the race with 2 laps to go, but still had to make a pit stop. Joshua Dirksen and Zane Maloney came to the rescue. Dirksen made his pit stop, came out of the pits. Zane Maloney was going up towards Casino Square, and Joshua Dirksen accidentally kind of goes a little bit too far left coming out of the pits, clips Zane Maloney and takes them out of the race, bringing out the safety car with virtual safety car with 1.5 laps to go. Zach O'Sullivan has like a 22-second gap to second place, pits under the VSC, comes out in the lead of the race, and races for 1 lap and wins his first F2 race. It was unbelievable. He kind of stole the win from Isaac Hadjar, who should have won the race on merit, but that's not how it's all about in racing. Luck sometimes plays a huge factor in motor racing. So to win Monaco from P15 on the grid, I think is pretty incredible. And it was just so funny going over the highlights while we were prepping for the F2 section this week to see that is how that race ended was just so incredible. And I say this every single time I talk about it, but if you want a little bit more chaotic energy when it comes to the racing, a little bit more just unexpected results, and more pure talent, I'd say watch Formula 2. It's a spec series, so everybody's relatively in the same car, but it was just so crazy. Like, I can't believe that. Starting from P15 and then, winning the race off of a VSC on the last lap of the race is unreal.
It's a pretty wild thing. Like, just to have that much luck come into your corner that way, it's good to see that happen, though. We're third of the way through Monaco after your nice little F2 recap, but going over to MotoGP for a second, we had the Barcelona GP today and this weekend, and I promise that one of these weekends I will sit down and actually watch one of these races, but 7 a.m. here in Chicago when we have Monaco at 8.
Yeah, that was
pretty hard one to kind of catch. So, some of the big news that happened was the rookie Acosta crashed out of P2 during the race today. That was very unfortunate. But Bagnaia wins the race again. And it was much closer compared to weeks before, as we had Jorge Martin on the Prima Pramac Racing in P2 was only 1.74 seconds behind pole. And it was an even closer fight for third and fourth between Marc Marquez and Alex Espargaro. Yeah. With only less than half
52 thousandths of a second. Yeah. That is incredible.
It is. I feel like bikes too have the ability to get really, really, really close.
Just how small they are.
Yeah. Like
they're very tiny machines, so you can race them closer than any other discretion of racing.
Because like for an F1 car to be that close to each other, you have to be side by side.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know. That was very interesting. Good for them. There's no real shakeup on any of the scoring or championship standings on that. We have Italy rally next week. Starts this Thursday, so that will be exciting to keep our eyes out. We got something to talk about for that.
24-hour of Le Mans in a couple weeks' time.
17 days.
I'm so excited.
It's going to be a good
Indy
one.
500 is in a couple hours from when we're recording this.
So we'll have something to talk about there.
Yeah,
next
absolutely.
week too. Shout out my girlfriend for getting me this hat.
I love that hat.
It's such a clean hat.
Yeah, we were going over packing up Raven's stuff a couple days ago, probably a week ago at this point, and I just saw that hat and I thought it was so cool. And lo and behold, now it's here.
Yes, sir. Had to give it some airtime today. But let's go into some F1 news, shall we? In case you haven't heard or aren't watching the race, McLaren is rocking a special livery in honor of Ayrton Senna. It's really cool. It looks like a Sprite can.
30 years since his passing. McLaren is also like known to be like the GOAT of doing special liveries. I feel like they've never botched one. You know, the golf livery in 2021 at Monaco.
Clean.
The chrome livery at Silverstone.
Clean.
Like last year, this one. Like they always knock
don't
it out
miss.
of the park. And I didn't think at Monaco this week I was going to see a yellow F1 car.
No, it's pretty wild, and I like it.
It looks so good. I would love for them to run this all season.
It's not
or
like
bring
an
it back
eyesore.
Bring it back for Brazil.
That was my thing with like yellow cars is like it's gonna stick out a lot.
Yeah.
But this one is very, very subtle. I love the green like secondary color on there.
And the blue accent in the
Yeah.
middle as well. Because obviously they're trying to represent the Brazilian flag on the car. And they've done it so well.
It's amazing. Continuing on with our news, Charles Leclerc adopted Oscar Piastri. So now he has 3 home Grand Prix in the season. Because he is like 1/16 Italian and obviously he's Australian. And now he is adopted by a Monegasquian.
Yeah, what made it so funny was the fact that
FP1.
FP1, they actually, like F1 themselves went into the graphic and renamed Oscar Piastri to Oscar Piastri - Leclerc. Like they went full commitment to it, and especially with Oscar placing in the top 3 as well, to see that like on the big screen was so funny.
I don't know if you saw Charles's tweet response to it, but he was like mixed emotions after FP1 in the Leclerc family. It's pretty funny, man.
We got a Leclerc front row this weekend.
Yeah, we did. That's actually in the doc. I have that somewhere. And then a little bit more news about Chicago. It's being downplayed more and more, and there's talks that the return of Thailand is coming back. I know you said
Not even the return, just to first race in Thailand. We have never raced in Thailand before.
But you were telling me that the president of Thailand met with F1.
Yeah,
over
last
the
week.
Yeah, so that will be very, very possible into something coming into fruition about that. Which, you know, kind of sucks for us. We really would like the Chicago GP in our backyard, but
We don't know. It could still happen.
it could still happen, and you know, there's always the future. So, Aston Martin team principal Mike Crack says the upgrades last week made the car worse to drive, and
I completely agree on that. Those upgrades didn't look like upgrades. That car was a trash can last week. I mean, Alonso qualified P20.
yeah, and like obviously he had nothing to push. He had, you know, the fire on his front left brake. But now I believe those upgrades should be on Stroll's car too, and even from qualifying this weekend, it didn't look that good. Besides him getting FP2 podium, but that's it.
No upgrade on the car is going to change the driver that Lance Stroll is. So,
I was more so talking about Alonso.
oh my bad, sorry guys. I'm just not the biggest Lance Stroll fan.
Neither of us are, brother. Sticking with Aston Martin real quick, Lawrence Stroll and Alonso are apparently losing patience with the team, according to Formula Uno. And I feel like these next 2 races after Monaco really will show how good this car can be for the second half of the season. And genuinely, I don't know if Mike Crack's job is safe.
I don't think it is.
like overall, I don't see a reason why they wouldn't want to go after someone else. And that next point is
Like, I don't
want to
say that Mike Crack hasn't done anything in his time at Aston Martin. He definitely has. Their 2023 car started off phenomenally last year as comfortably like the second best car on the grid. But it's so hard to understand what Lawrence Stroll actually wants to do with this team still. It's so funny to say that Lawrence Stroll is losing patience because I feel like his role in this is very huge still. I mean, obviously, his role is the investment into the team, but, I mean, they might need to do some shakeup of engineers in the team. And if that really comes down to Mike Crack losing his job, I don't know how I feel about that.
Right. I mean, I think it's a possibility, especially with Lawrence seen talking to your favorite Ferrari X-Team principal,
Mattia Binotto.
Yeah, thank you for saying that because I was going to butcher the name.
Oh, I gotcha.
He was seen talking to him over at Imola last weekend, and this could really be what the team needs is just some sort of new leadership on that level. Besides getting rid of Lance Stroll,
Seriously, as much as they're like in a rut right now. The fact that Lance Stroll is still in that car is genuinely shocking. And I don't want this to, divulge into like a conversation of, here we go back to the we can't stand Lance Stroll in the car comment. But when it comes to like pure performance, that is 100% a factor. You need to have an actual good driver in the car.
Yeah, it's just.
I'm sorry.
That's just a normal, reasonable thing to do.
Yeah.
And especially with I don't know. You showed me the video of all the crashes. I saw Rocket Powered Mohawk's video on Lance Stroll's interview, which I did send to you about him being
that interview was years ago, but it's still
but
rings
it's
true.
So true, just because it's brother, look at yourself. The hypocrisy is crazy.
The hypocrisy is unbelievable in that interview he did. But it's just so funny because if they bring Mattia Binotto in as team principal, there's potential Binotto could do well there, but also if you bring in Mattia Binotto, why not just get rid of Fernando Alonso and put Sargent in the second car, bro? Just let it go into a clown show.
I mean, if that's what you really want it to become, sure, we can have that.
I don't want it.
Absolutely, then. I hate to continue to crap on my favorite green team, but I mean, really just Alonso last week. But they've been outscored by, as quote, Alpha Tauri Visa Cash App, buy one, get one free or whatever, as James Vowles said this week on the grid. They've been outscored by VCarb 13-1 in the last 4 races, not including Monaco. Does that mean Aston Martin's kind of falling back into that? I love what the Red Pod said when they said, are they falling back into this kind of Alpine last year position where they're the middle, such a middle pack team, but
I don't want that to happen because the Alpine last year position was you're far better than the back markers, but you are far worse than the midfield and the front running cars. They're in their own place.
Yeah, and I think right now, I mean, I understand that you're having struggles. It's that time of the year where you're switching up circuits and a lot more downforce is needed on these tracks.
Mm-hmm.
But do you now sit in this kind of mediocrity place? But I don't think they're that middle team because VCarb is, so close behind them and they're actually
I would say Aston Martin and VCarb are very much in the exact same spot right now.
Yes, I think that's the best way
I think
to
they're
put it.
very level.
I think that's just the best way to put it.
So 5-6. They're kind of jostling over 5th and 6th position right now.
I was trying to think about how to
is
say
kind
that.
of what Alpine was doing last year, where they're picking up the 1 and 2 points every other weekend or every weekend. So it looks like they had a decent season, but when you really look at all the other teams' points, they're nowhere.
Yeah. I mean, it's just been such a dominant season by Red Bull.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Mercedes been lackluster. It's really just been McLaren, Red Bull, and Ferrari this year.
Yeah.
Which is better, in my opinion, than just Red Bull dominating.
I
but
agree. I think at this point in the season, especially from what I'm seeing right now, I think there's a genuine case to be made that one of 3 different teams can win a race every single week,
which is the best it's been all year.
So I feel like it's the best it's been in like 2 years now. Last year, Max Verstappen won all but 2 races, or all but 3 races. So
it's crazy, dude. But Checo Perez has been offered a 1-year extension by his current team. That being said, he does want a 2-year extension and has countered offered with that, which will be interesting to see how he will do in the European Secret.
What has me
which
so
is
annoyed
foreshadowing
with this?
to what happened, 20 minutes ago.
No. Oh my goodness.
Sorry.
No. I just think first on the contract extension, Perez, you do not have this much wiggle room when it comes to negotiating, dude. You need to take what you can get to stay at that team. But yeah, as Raven just hinted at, we are on the European section of the calendar now, which is when Perez forgets how to drive a car.
Until we get back to Canada in 2 weeks.
Yeah, so, he had his P11 qualifying at Imola last week, not having a good race weekend there. And then he had this week already where he qualified P18, getting knocked out of Q1 because apparently there was traffic or whatever, but then had his incident with both of the Haas's during the race, which was literally the thing I saw right before we started recording the podcast today. It's got to be a curse, dude. Everybody talks about Charles Leclerc's Monaco curse. How about Checo Perez's
European
tracks that have
curse.
human rights curse?
All right, moving on. It's being reported that Alpine is potentially looking into Mick Schumacher as a potential driver next year, which after last week we broke it down for Mick. I think that's one of his best options if he wants to be driving in F1 as a competitor, I would say.
Well, for me, it's more the fact that since you have lost your seat and now taken multiple years out of F1, if that is your end goal, is to be in Formula One, I think you need to take whatever seat you can get.
Yes, I agree. After the cancellation of Imola last year, the trophy lists all of the winners in the year that they won. And I thought this was really cool because I did a project and I really saw what was happening in that region of Italy.
Most definitely.
They put the citizens of the Emilia-Romagna.
The Emilia-Romagna region.
Thank you. I got the first part right. Perfect. God, Italian is such a hard language.
It is.
But they put the citizens of the province as the winners. And, last year they had one of the worst floods that they've had in over 80 years and have been going through a drought for the last 70 years. So they had a lot of economic struggles without having the race this year. But so far, it looks like they've been getting a lot of rain. And it didn't rain last week during the race.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting
They've
for
been
us.
bouncing back.
Do you want to break down silly season so far?
Oh, I would love to.
AKA just Carlos Sainz?
Yeah. There's this crazy rumor now of Carlos Sainz apparently in talks with Williams. It seems that he doesn't really want the Audi seat, which kind of makes no sense to me.
It shocks me, dude.
Or I guess maybe it's not wanting the Audi seat, but it's not wanting to go to Sauber before it becomes Audi.
Fair.
Maybe that's where a lot of this is getting lost in translation. Maybe Nico Hulkenberg is different. Hulk just needs a seat, man.
Yeah.
He'll race for Sauber. I don't know if Carlos wants to spend a year racing, essentially in the worst car on the grid, because his stock isn't going to improve from racing that car whatsoever. And then the whole Williams thing, I don't see that happening either. I feel like Valtteri is a bigger opportunistic move for Williams because Carlos won't stay at this.
No, he would leave the moment a better seat's open.
Yeah, he's not gonna. What was I gonna say? Find a long-term contract in this kind of in-between team that he's gonna go to for a year or two. So, I think if Carlos is smart, he needs to take it on the chin and spend a year in a bad car if he wants to have the chance to be in a front-running car again. I mean, it's not like this is his fault or anything. He didn't want to leave Ferrari. Ferrari just wanted Lewis Hamilton. And now it's always the question of, how do you respond to the situations that you've been put in? Like, of course, it's not your fault, but now you're in this situation now, so you need to look at it with, from a far perspective, and make the best of your current situation. And the best for his current situation is going to Audi, is going to Sauber next year. So he really needs to just lock in, take the contract. I wouldn't spend a year out of the sport if I was him.
I don't think it's smart unless you guarantee yourself, like, unless you're trying to do what Alonso was doing, trying to go after the Triple Crown. Then I can see him going to another discretion for just a year to see if he can, snag that win early in his career.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's A, his go-to option, or B, what he wants to do.
I agree.
But something else that we talked about a few weeks ago was the FIA trying out spray guards to increase rain racing, as I like to call it. Those out the window.
Obviously, we went over the images of them last week and all that kind of stuff.
2 weeks ago, I think.
It might have been 2 weeks ago. Just seeing that they really weren't dispersing water as much as people thought they would, because there was that textbook image of the wet tires right next to the new rain guard tires. And
nothing was different.
Yeah, it looked exactly the same. So they said, I feel like we can kind of just ditch this and throw it on the side because this is obviously not working. I understand them wanting to increase the safety of being able to, race in the rain.
Yeah.
But
it makes sense, but not the right way of doing it.
And they looked horrible too, all that kind of stuff. Like, it was boxy. It would have made pit stops way more difficult as well in the rain. So those needed to go. They were never staying.
Sorry, I'm just reading Leclerc's radio right now. They're talking about pit windows and why he can't pit right now. So that's why. Little update since we are halfway through the race. Valtteri Bottas in 16th place has the fastest lap.
There has been one on-track overtake during the race. Logan Sargent overtaking Guan Yu Zhou for P14.
Yuki Tsunoda's now in 8th place, so he's been sneaky, I think, getting past some people. I don't remember where he started, but that's okay. The biggest piece of news that kind of happened this week was what happened with Liberty Media and Andretti. Liberty Media CDO Greg Maffei said about Michael Andretti coming into F1 that he will do everything in my power to see that Michael never enters Formula One, which is a
crazy comment.
Strong comment. Andretti responded that, this one really floored me. We're talking about business. I don't know that this was something so personal. Oh my goodness, I could not believe it. It was just like a bullet through my heart, is what he said. And genuinely, that makes sense because these are two American companies we have to remember. Liberty Media is an American company, Andretti is an American company. So they both have to follow American law, which is why that issue when 12 senators wrote to Liberty Media asking, why are you doing this? We haven't really heard anything about that, first off, which makes me think that
it's something happening behind closed doors.
Yes, there is something happening behind closed doors, 100%. Now, Greg, him saying this as like, I don't know if it's a response to all of the actions that he was doing, but it genuinely does feel like a personal vendetta at this point. I don't know. I understand Andretti's a major business in America as well. What has Andretti
done to them? That's what I want to know. What have they done?
I don't know if they're just thinking that they're making like, oh, we're coming to make a money. Like, that's all we're here for. We're not going to race. Because Andretti is a giant business model, too. They have a lot of go-kart and like entertainment centers around the United States. They built one like 5 minutes away from where I lived in Georgia. It's just crazy to me to think that you would want to deny another American business and give, jobs to people in the industry, but also another team is always going to be more competition.
It's because the 10 constructors that are there already don't want to dilute the prize pot.
I genuinely don't think it's all of them that want that. And yeah, if you bring in more money having another constructor, can you not just up the prize pool overall?
I don't know, because I feel like that prize pool is created through the money that Formula One generates as a business.
But they have to buy their spot in. It's like there's just so many
true.
nuances.
That's true.
Like they're not just joining. They don't get an invite. They have to buy their spot in, which, as any business does, if you buy your spot in, you're given a spot and then given a percentage of the shares.
And I know the money, some of the money that you use to buy into the sport also does go into the prize pool.
Yeah. So that would just be another thing. You're also getting 2 more drivers having to pay for their super license every year. You're taking points away from other drivers that are maybe not paying as much, but you're still going to be getting more money overall in the long run. To continue on this, even Ford, another American company, as we know, showing their support for Andretti and General Motors, which in the racing world, 2 engine suppliers kind of supporting each other on something.
It's kind of crazy.
It's a pretty wild thing to kind of come together. But the GM of Ford saying we welcome them as General Motors and Andretti, and that we don't have anything against them. It's Mark Rushbrook, global director of Ford Performance. But this is literally a soap opera, and it's not fun to watch. It's not fun to, have to be reading all this.
I just think it's stupid.
Yeah, I mean,
like I personally, I'm so over this.
if you say no, give them the reasons why.
But
they're not going to.
They're always so mysterious. They like to keep us guessing.
Spooky. Whatever, man. Something I saw
it.
funny this weekend was that Williams is the most winningest constructor at Monaco.
Well, no. McLaren is
Is
with 15.
Yes, but Williams has more than Mercedes at Monaco. Which,
Here, I'm going to give you a little history lesson.
Thank you. McLaren leads with all-time with 15, Ferrari 9, Lotus and Red Bull with 7, BRM with 5, Tyrrell with 3, and I know Mini Cooper won once. I did my research.
Good on you.
I did my research.
Now, the research that I'm going to pose to you is that Mercedes has only been racing for
Not as long.
15, 20 years in F1. They raced in the 1950 season, 1951, and then 2010 onwards.
After Braun.
Yeah, after Braun.
But
So their 5 wins have come in a 14-year period.
hey, BRM with 5.
Yeah.
That's impressive. That's impressive.
Rest in peace to BRM as well.
I wish they'd come back. Kind of continuing with just where the cars are at right now. Ferrari and McLaren, I would say, are the best 2 for Monaco right now, just because Red Bull struggled a lot through qualifying. But out of those 3, it seems like those are the 3 that are going to be competing every week, and everyone else is behind. But
I was going to say, Mercedes is nowhere close
no, they're not.
to competing week in and week out. They're not even competing for podiums right now.
And it really, really sucks. But we're going to switch over to the race recap, even though the race is still happening, so we can't really recap it. But we're going to go over the weekend and give you a little send-off as where the race is at that moment. And then if anything happens once we end, I will make a little, 10-second snippet at the end of the video in pod to add.
I like the idea.
Thank you. I've done it once before. But right now, Leclerc is still 2.5 seconds ahead of Piastri, so I don't think anything's going to change.
They're going through some back marker traffic right now.
They are, which it's a good point to get to. Stroll is also 20 seconds behind Pierre Gasly, so time to get this guy out of F1
It's
and
just
into
classic.
Wimbledon.
But as we talked about super early in the podcast, after FP1, we were all kind of shocked to see the results being posted with the Piastri Leclerc double last name. It's so funny because they were joking with each other. Charles and Oscar were joking with each other on Twitter about, Oscar being adopted for the weekend. And obviously the internet loves that kind of stuff. So they just went full blown on taking the ante up with it. But it's just, I don't know, to post it on the official results was crazy. And it didn't happen again for the rest of the weekend. It only happened during FP1. But I know Raven was talking how much, he likes the sport, and the network are really poking fun at it, making the sport even more entertaining. But, a lot of people are going to say it's stupid, or, this is supposed to be the pinnacle of motorsport. Why are we acting like children? And you're appealing to children at the same time. So keeping them engaged, keeping them tweeting and speaking about the sport, I can see why F1 has played into it. It makes complete sense from a business perspective. But what was so surprising was the fact that the Mercedes were very dominant in the first couple practice sessions. You had Lewis and George splitting Oscar Piastri in the middle for FP1. FP2, you had Charles on top with Lewis in second, and somehow Alonso snuck his way into third.
That shocked me when I saw that. I was like, bro, what are you doing here?
Yeah, and then FP3, it was Charles, Max, and Lewis. So to see Red Bull only feature in the top three once in all practice sessions, but Lewis Hamilton to be in the top three every single time, I was expecting the potential of Lewis challenging for pole position or something like that. But then when qualifying came around, we fell right back into that Mercedes P6 to P8 little section. So I'm not surprised.
I mean, continuing where you were, we kind of saw that lackluster Red Bull setup this week kind of coming through. There's been a lot of complaints that the car's been bouncing a lot. And I saw today when I was walking over here that Max said in an interview that this has been an issue with the car for the last 2 years, but they just managed it way better the last 2 years. And now, once you start over designing everything else on the car, those things that you kind of are pushing to the back are going to come back and bite you in the butt, essentially.
Absolutely.
I mean, it kind of sucks, but that's just how it seems to have gone for them this week. And moving over to qualifying, Checo was out in Q1 with Logan, both stakes, and Alonso, how are you going to go podium in FP2 and then out in Q1? I don't understand it, but...
But I liked the both of them, Checo and Alonso, being eliminated just because it opened the door for stellar qualifying performances from the lower ranked teams currently in the Constructors' Championship. That opened essentially P9 and P10 for the taking to get somebody.
Pierre Gasly got into Q3.
Alex Albon got into Q3. That was awesome.
Those are just fun to see. I mean, we love to see that. Q2, we saw Lance, both Haas, Daniel, and SD Bestie go out in Q2. Both Haas's were then disqualified after that due to a DRS infringement where a few pieces were too long. And Gunther Steiner posted a
I didn't see
measure
this
on his story and was like, here, guys, you need this.
I love Gunther.
Oh, brother. You see him and the Red Pod are teaming up for a show.
That'll be so nice.
I'm not shouting. I'm not plugging the pod. I'm sorry, guys. But they don't pay me. So no one pays me right now.
But what's so...
That's my job.
What's so surprising to me is just the fact that both Haas's got disqualified from qualifying and both found a way to go out on the first
lap. Yeah.
You're starting from, other than the front
pit lane.
row, you're starting in the safest spot for the race, and both of you went out one corner in. But yeah, Q3 was pretty exciting with the Red Bulls. Red Bull, nowhere. Max had an issue on his first lap, really couldn't get a good lap in, and then on his second lap hit the wall. So he ended up starting P6 for the race, which left the pole position door wide open for who everybody wanted to take pole position at home, the GOAT, Charles Leclerc. We're really, really trying to break the Monaco curse this weekend, and we are currently 29 laps away from that curse being broken, which started all the way back in his Formula 2 days. But what really surprised me was how close Oscar Piastri was as well. Not even Lando Norris or Carlos. Oscar was like very locked into qualifying this
Oscar's
weekend.
been, he hasn't been more than 2 seconds behind him all race today. And I feel like with those upgrades that Norris got at Miami, now being on his car for the last 2 weeks, and he's kind of really getting a feel to it, he seems to be outperforming Norris this weekend for sure.
This weekend, most definitely. Over the season, no. Lando's comfortably been the better driver.
Yes, but this race, it does look like he's been doing his thing. So going over, we have Max in P6.
Yeah, that was just terrible.
And did you see that after the podium for qualifying?
Yeah, I couldn't either.
Jesus.
Leclerc and Leclerc,
thank you. They were hugging it out, but Oscar and Carlos couldn't make eye contact.
That's crazy.
Like they have some little beef apparently that they don't really like each other.
Unnecessary.
Yeah, but moving over to the actual race that we have gotten so far. Oh my goodness, Lance Stroll's tire is off in the pit lane.
All right. I think he literally hit the wall coming into the pit lane.
I don't know what that is because he still has his tire, but that might have been Alonso. Yeah. Anyway, there was something on the pit lane wall that they cut to. That was very interesting. With all the last 3 races having very, very clean opening laps of racing,
it all culminated
today. It just snowballed, and everyone wanted to just crash, I guess. Everything that happened in the first lap. First, you had Carlos and Oscar touch. Carlos goes into the runoff and gets a puncture.
Not even think he's out of the race.
No, not really. But like 20. I mean, at that point in time, yes, I understand what you're saying now.
Yeah.
At that point in time, it does look like you're out of the race. 20 seconds later, the whole Kevin. What'd you say? Kevin
Magnussen decides I would love to be the first one to get the 1 race ban in the penalty point system, and decides to send it up after Sandoval tries to send it up on the inside of Sergio Perez, going almost 3 wide with himself, Sergio, and Nico, and pits Sergio, sends them both slamming into the wall, and then they catch Nico as well. And you have Guan Yu Zhou behind them all, just like watching it out, and he like fully stopped the car on track.
I didn't see that. That's funny. So that happened, and then those cars were at the back of the pack.
Yes.
So that's happening while Alpines are getting to right after the turn and during the tunnel. Esteban was like, you know what? I'm faster than my teammate, and decides to just throw it underneath Pierre Gasly and takes both of them out. And that was the point where the random stewards were like, okay,
let's put the red
flag out. We had like almost a 40-minute red flag period just so teams could, work on the cars, fix some stuff. During that time, Sainz was given 3rd place back after the restart, and they explained it on air, but I didn't really catch it, and nor did I really care for the technicality of it, if I'm going to be real.
I also don't think he should be given that back.
I don't think he should be given it back on the technicality of, this happened first and then the red flag was after. It should be where you were during the red flag was called. Yeah, that's my 2 cents as a little F1
It's a 2
fan.
cents that I share with you.
So it's 4 cents. Nearing the restart, all the teams were doing any repairs and changes needed. McLaren's seemed to have a little floor damage and side pod damage that they were fixing on Piastri's car, but it seems like the cars are fine. And only 16 cars were going to start after the restart once Esteban Ocon was seen walking out of the pit lane.
And that takes us now to lap 53 of the race, where absolutely nothing has happened
Literally,
since the restart.
Lance Stroll is pitted. Same with Lewis Hamilton. And, it looks like Max Verstappen's coming into a pit right now.
He can go for the fastest lap with a 22-second gap.
I need those 1 points.
Oh, my God, yellow flag sector 2.
No, shut up.
I'm not even kidding.
No, you are correct. I will stand corrected. I am stupid. Oh, never mind. Green flag. Wah, wah.
What do you guys think about us doing live race reactions?
I mean, I do want to do something where it's like us, sitting on the couch you're on, watching a race, just talking about it. That is something that we are trying to figure out the logistics of. But the other thing I want to do is once I move and get my actual PC set up, me and you can start doing some F1 live streams or racing live streams and just hang out with fans wherever they would like to find us. Let's go.
Oh, yeah.
Would you like to do our... These is my top 5 or not 5 because...
These are going to be Ravens' top 5 or not 5. I personally did not think about doing top 5 or not 5 this week.
We didn't do it last week, and I wanted to do it this week because there's some funny memes about Monaco that I have in here. So I will switch all the cameras over to me and
Raven,
speed through
go
this.
crazy, brother.
I will. All right, deep breath, and here we go. Charles' home pole shared with his newly adopted son. That's great. The Duracell Bunny makes his appearance as my second top 5. F1 making little graphics for the guest commentators. Miami had Jack Doohan, and today they had David Coulthard there. Both were amazing. McLaren's race pace, absolutely outstanding. And I believe this is going to be the first time watching a race without Red Bull on podium that was due to a mechanical failure. This one's going to be all on merit because Checo Perez isn't going to be on pole. We all knew that.
Of course.
It's Europe. Not 5s for this week. I have the quote, "I've hit a wall" happening.
I probably heard that 30 times this weekend.
Exactly. Second point, me moving. That sucks. I'm so tired and stressed. Monaco being equivalent to the Met Gala last year in the sense that most of these people don't love the sport and are there for social gains.
Yes.
Nico Hulkenberg's luck this year. Wah wah. And then 35 flashbangs coming out of the tunnel every time you're watching an onboard cam.
You know what? We're making this a not 6. Kevin Magnussen is getting a race ban, dude. And that is a not 5 moment.
I mean, we knew that, but yeah. That was not 5 or top 5 for this week. It was very, very quick. I'm out of breath.
I'm out of energy.
I'm tired. We do have this race that's happening. This is why I wanted to record during the race, is just because it's not that exciting of a race to watch. We believe Leclerc is going to win, and I will come back with a little 2 cents
Charles
if something
is going to be a
happens.
6-time GP winner.
It's going to happen, baby. My first time seeing Charles win. But I think that's going to wrap it up for this week. We have Listen for Commands coming into the pod studio here in a few minutes, so we got to get ready, clean up for them. Otherwise, this should be on YouTube tomorrow morning, should be on any podcatcher tomorrow morning as well. Please rate us 5 stars, like, comment, subscribe, wherever you're doing anything. Oliver, I'll kick it to you for the YouTube goodbye, but for the audio listeners, thank you. And please catch us next week.
And for our YouTube listeners, goodbye. Subscribe is going to be right here on this side of my head, on the left side of my head. Last week's video is going to be on this side of my head. Appreciate you guys being here. This has been an interesting one for sure, but hopefully Charles is going to win his home race. And we'll see you next week.
We'll see you guys next week. Bye, everyone.